I will be 46 over here. I cannot tell you, reflecting on this, how quickly like 32 to 46 happened compared with 16 to 32. Can anyone else relate to this? This was one of the most sobering exercises I went through, considering this is how much, that's how much of my average life I've gone through. That's how much is left, and how much of that are going to be my healthiest, strongest, most active years. You know, getting to travel and do, I'm already getting more tired than I was even 5 years ago. Like I feel it. I've really taken up a bit of an exercise. And sorry for anyone who's heard me talk about this before, because it really is like Fight Club. It's the opposite of Fight Club, where no one talks about Fight Club. If you play pickleball, that's all you talk about, except for when you're in WFG, that's all you talk about. But I have taken up pickleball as my form of exercise. And I can tell you, and I know you guys didn't come here to hear about my aches and pains, but a couple hours of that, and I've gotten better and I've gotten more fit, and my body aches like it didn't used to ache. So what is that going to look like 10 years from now and 20 years from now? How precious our time is, how precious it is, and how much I hope we're not taking it for granted. With that in mind, I really appreciate you spending some time with me here tonight, and I hope we can have some value. We're going to look at how we can max out the summer, which is the next 3 years, or 12 of these dots. Sorry, did I say years? I meant months. The next 3 months, or 12 of these dots that are going to pass us by, right? June, July, August, September, however you want to measure it. The next 12 weeks are going to go like that. How can we max them out? All right, I'm going to share my screen. I got to move some things around again. Share screen. And present. Okay. All right. Now, unfortunately, when I do this, I'm down to seeing only 5 faces. Kaylee, Lynn, Jenna, and Crystal, hello. So I'm counting on you to be my audience. But if anyone has anything else, throw it in the chat. If somebody, you know, needs to get my attention on something, I'm hoping that there can be a little bit of back and forth even in the chat. But thank you guys for being here. So how to max out your summer. Here we go. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about is, what are the pitfalls? What is unique about summer? And Miss Cheryl McCausland nailed it right off the get-go. What's unique potentially about the season, and it applies to other times of year, is that the biggest enemies to our success and our ability to stay focused and our ability to be productive and consistent is always drift and procrastination. But there is something extra special pressure-wise, if simply because of beautiful weather, that can help have us succumb to drift and procrastination, led often by distraction and then simply some habits of being undisciplined. So if we can overcome these, if we can max out, what is our payoff? We can look at this as a opportunity season, a separation season, right? And not just because we're competitive, maybe in World Financial Group or on the team, or we're running for a contest that maybe others will be succumbing to distraction. How about just in life? How about the fact that we're in a competitive industry and other folks are going to be distracted and drifting and so on? So this is a chance for us to create some separation and to set ourselves apart and magnify our potential results. It's also great for prospecting. Maybe people, not only are there maybe chances for us to meet more people out and about, because more people are maybe out of their homes, but they might be in better moods. Maybe they're in a more receptive frame of mind. Maybe they've got kids that are off school. Sometimes that's really busy, but other times that opens up schedules in different ways. So we want to, whatever the scenario is, we want to look for how we can leverage the advantage in that. And one of those, if we look for it, could be those extra prospecting opportunities. And then this is a big one. Typically, in the seasons of our year, naturally in the industry, this doesn't have to be true of your business if you're killing it all year round, but naturally in our industry and in the rhythm of most folks' lives, fall tends to be the most productive time, the busiest time. So a strong and focused summer can help us build momentum into the fall. Now, before I go on, I'm actually going to go back because I want to mention one more thing about this. These are the pitfalls we just talked about. Notice what's not up there. The pitfall or the problem is not you enjoying yourself, you spending time with family, you getting a suntan, or in my case, a sunburn, although that is a problem. That is a pitfall for me. It's not the wonderful things that you can expect or would want to expect from a summer experience. Those are not the problem, right? The problem is if we're not staying in control, making conscious decisions about how we're going to use our time and the results that we're committed to achieving over this period, and then the discipline to stick to our plan. If we can do that, we can do it all. And let me rephrase that by saying, you really can have it all if you can schedule it all in, right? That's the key. And then have the discipline to keep that schedule. Which brings me to the next point about discipline. Who's heard this before? And again, I can only see 4 of you, so I'm counting on some feedback. Discipline equals freedom. There's a little cheat at the bottom. I was going to say, hey, who knows who said that, but it's right there. Jocko Willink. I'm sure others have said it as well. He's one of my favorites. His book, Discipline Equals Freedom, is something that we studied as a group on our team. In fact, we're going to probably get back to doing that again because it had such a profound impact on all of us. Just reminding ourselves of these concepts. And I'm going to read this to you. This is it's a little bit paraphrased. It's a quote from Jocko, but I paraphrased it a tiny, tiny bit. So if there's anything you don't like about it, blame that on me. While discipline and freedom seem like they sit on opposite ends of the spectrum, they are actually very connected. Freedom is what everyone wants, to be able to act and live with freedom. But the only way to get to a place of freedom is through discipline. If you want financial freedom, you have to have financial discipline. If you want more free time, you have to follow a more disciplined time management system. So, and this is some of my paraphrasing here. So here's the lesson. Here is the instruction. Number 1, do the things that you decided you need to do, right? That's what discipline is. Regardless, and this is not on your screen, and maybe I'll open this up for a comment. You need to do the things you decided you need to do, regardless of how you, who has an answer? Feel. That's it. That's the separation, right? Regardless of how you feel. Now, by the way, that doesn't mean when you're sick and unable to, we always want to do our best, but sometimes our best looks different than other times, depending on what's going on in our life. But just not feeling like it is one of the biggest drift and procrastination outcomes that gives us the results of not getting where we want to go. That's one of the biggest separators between folks that get where they want to go because they consistently are able to do what they decided they needed to do, regardless of how they feel like it, or regardless of if they feel like it. Number 2, don't do. So this is about saying yes and following through on what you decided you needed to do, and not doing the things that eat up your time with no payback, or random activities that aren't in your time budget. So it doesn't mean you can't shift or pivot, or something comes up and you have to move things around, but you're making conscious decisions about your schedule and the commitments you made, and your resolve to have those outcomes happen in the timely fashion, in the time that you decided. Discipline equals freedom applies to every aspect of life. If you want more freedom, get more discipline. So if you want more freedom and fun and sun and family time in summer, if we believe this, then what does that mean we have to do? The more of that we want, the more disciplined we have to be about our approach to making that all happen. And so much of this comes down to how we can slot that into our schedule and our calendar, our control, our ability. And I'm going to use the word manage our time, even though I heard a great quote once that said, you can't actually manage time. You can only manage yourself in it, because we can't move time around, right? We can't manage time. It's happening, but we can manage ourselves in it. And that's really what it comes down to. Just another little kind of play on words that we can think about. Okay. So what does this boil down to? How do we have the discipline? Well, first of all, we've got to make some decisions. Like, how do we have the discipline to do the things we decided to do if we didn't make any decisions about what we need to do. So this is where it has to start. And we're going to dig into some of this a little bit. And this, by the way, again, doesn't apply to just summer. What we're going to go through next here is, and I am sharing this with you as a student of these concepts. You know, one of the reasons that I'm working on this and paying attention to this and keeping this up and, you know, appreciate the opportunity to teach this class is because this is my opus. This is my Everest. This is exactly what I am working on myself to max out my life and my summer. And I hope that we're all in that same mentality, that you're thinking like I am, that we can do this together. Okay, so we got to start with some clearly defined goals and then have a written plan. That expression, I don't know when I first heard it, but the first time I remember hearing it and writing it in my notes was at a convention with Mr. Rich Thali. And he spent and then at almost every subsequent convention, at some point in a talk he would give, not maybe every time, but so frequent it may as well have been, he would bring out this concept, because this is really what it boils down to. And if you have been to goals classes and you've heard me or anyone else talking, you're like, oh, we're beating a dead horse. There's a reason why we're hearing this on repeat. Do you have clearly defined goals and then a written plan of execution? And that's a written plan in many ways, including how it's going to slot into time, like the next 3 months, like over the summer season, like over the next 3 years, and so on. So I'm going to make a suggestion to you. I don't have a slide for this. I meant to actually put one in here, but it's not there. So I'm just going to tell you about it. I'm going to make a suggestion to you, and we're going to go through a little bit of this process here tonight. We're going to look at the concept of clearly defined goals and a written plan, distilled down to a concept of something called the 12-week year. Now, again, I can only see a few of you. Actually, I'm going to go through the arrow here so I can see more. Who's heard of the 12-week year before? Who's heard of that before? No, but Lena, I saw Lena's hand go up. I'm still scrolling through. Okay. This is going to be a teaser for that. Oh, Crystal, I see you there. Thank you. So a guy named Brian Moran, I don't know how to say his last name. I think it's Moran. He wrote that book called The 12-Week Year. I was going to put a slide with a screenshot of the book, and for some reason I forgot to do that or missed it or whatever the case is. So you can make a note if you want to check it out. And I'm simply suggesting that that's one highly effective approach to how you could develop a plan around your WFG business. And we're not undoing or going against anything that you might be working on within your team, your base shop, with your trainer. But this is just a way, a process by which you can start to distill down what you want your goals to be, clearly defining those, and then having the tactics, the methodology around how you're actually going to achieve it, which is the written plan. So I'm saying that so you have another reference point to build off of this, off the process we're going to go tonight, and also to give credit where it's due, because everything we're going to go through has really come from the 12-week year people. So here we go. I got to close the chat so that I can read. So we start with, what do you want? Big thinking always precedes big achievement. Our vision of the future will profoundly shape our destiny. How many people do you think out there actually have a vision for the future? Unfortunately, so few, or they've had fleeting ideas. People are dreamers, and they do get inspired, and they do have thoughts coming through, but it's almost like a bird that flies overhead. It came and it went, right? They don't actually capture it. And I'm not suggesting we should capture birds, but as far as grand ideas and visions and clarity about our future, we absolutely need to capture that. Winston Churchill said, the empires of the future are the empires of the mind. We create things twice. In fact, Steve Holbrook would tell you we create them 3 times. And I quoted from the book, but I'm going to use the 3 times methodology here. We create it first in our minds, and then on paper, and then in real life. They've put on paper and real life into the physical, right? They've put that in one, but we could break it into 3. First mentally, and then physically. So first in our minds, on paper, and then we create it in real life. So envisioning the future. It's essential that we think about, dream about, and ultimately envision our futures. A compelling vision provides meaning and direction. People with vision can overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. Has anyone ever heard this before? If your why is strong enough, you will figure out the how, right? You can overcome almost anything. Who here has read The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy? Who's familiar with that book? Are a few of you out there? I sure hope so. I'm almost just making plugs for books here. If you have not read that one, that's almost mandatory on our team. The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. His initial chapter, and it's a blueprint of creating success and having the right mindset. His initial chapter talks about if our spark, if our reason why, if our vision, if what we want, if what drives us is strong enough, there's almost nothing we're incapable of. And he gives the example of, a parent and the need, the love and the care they have for the child. How many, many of you have children, and moms and dads tell me there's nothing they wouldn't do for their kids. And so the example is, if I put down in front of you, I see Jenna there. Jenna Lubeck, I'm speaking to you right now. Do you have kids, Jenna? No, me neither. So we're going to do this hypothetically. I have a dog I love a great deal, and family members and friends, but we're going to do this hypothetically. So we're going to pretend, Jenna, that you have kids. If I put a 2x4, or we can even make it a 2x6, 6 inches wide, right? I put a 2x6 in front of you right here on the floor, or maybe wherever you're at. I put it on the floor in your office there. And I said, I'm going to give you $100 to walk on this 2x4 on the floor, 2x6. I give you 6 inches. Would you do it? Yeah. Well, why wouldn't you, right? I mean, what happens if you don't make it? Catastrophe? There's nothing. There's no risk. You just step onto the floor. And if you do make it, well, you're going to get a little bit of cash. You'd probably even do it for $10, right? Be like, sure, what's the catch? Why are you paying me to do this, right? Now, here's the next question. If I put that, I'm right now in a 2-story building. So let me just show you guys. I can look out onto that beautiful parking lot. Let's say the building next to me was actually close enough to be bridged by that 2x6. So we're on the roof now, this 2-story building. We've got a 2x6 from one to the other. And I said, okay, Jenna, $100. Would you walk across it? I don't know if you could unmute yourself, but I'd be. Nope. There, Andy. No. You're crazy enough that you would. Let's make it a 10-story building. We're getting the point though, right? Suddenly there's an incredible amount of risk to it. Now, what now? Yeah, I love this analogy too, Jess, because if you actually allow yourself to really feel it, and especially if you've got any fear around heights, often you can kind of get the butterflies just mentally putting yourself in that situation. Now I want you to picture your child in that building and it's on fire. And the only way they're going to be rescued is if you get across that 2x6 and you go grab them and get them. Now, are we negotiating? Are we thinking about the price? Oh, $100, that's not enough. Maybe if you gave me $1,000, I would do it. No, there's no negotiation. You're going to go get your kid. And we're not going to care what passerbys down on what is that crazy person doing? Nothing about anyone's opinion, about fears, about, oh, I'm too tired. I would do it, but I just had a really long day. Or you know what? Somebody said something mean to me earlier today and I just can't get over it. So I'm going to need to do some self-care and, kind of reconnect with my groundedness before we're on that 2x4 and we're saving 2x6. I keep shrinking it. It wouldn't matter. If it was a 2x4, we'd be on it. We'd go save our kid. Okay. And again, thank you, Angie. I get to retell Darren Hardy's writings. If you have not read that book, make that be your next book. If you're in the middle of something, you can even pause it unless you need to finish it first, but go and read that book. It's so simple, so straightforward, and so incredibly profound. All right. So we can channel that same level of power, relentlessness, strength, grit, determination, non-negotiableness. We can capture that same power if we develop on purpose a clear picture in our mind with the emotional reasons why it's that important for our loved ones, for our kids, for our best self, for our debt to the privilege of being alive, right? We can capture that same beautiful intensity if we have clarity around our true desires. It will mobilize your creative efforts and generate the desire and energy to perform. And it really is that amazing. It really is that significant. All significant accomplishment began with someone daring to think it possible. So also playing into this is this idea of thinking bigger, of 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 moving into that creative space in our minds, and or teachers or society or all of the boundaries and ropes and lids that have been put on us. We're ripping those off because we're daring to think of what's possible. So often we sell ourselves short. We aim well below our potential. You can do far more than you've ever dreamed or imagined. You are currently surrounded by breakthrough opportunities. Put aside the doubts and fears. I just got to find my, there we go. Put aside the doubts and fears and claim the future. All right. At this juncture, knowing the how, that how you're going to get it done is not important. What's important is knowing where you want to be. Once decided, you can determine the best route and the appropriate tactics to get there. For now, we're going to focus on the future. All right. Are you guys ready? Because this is where you're going to do a little bit of work. The first step to getting what you want in life is this: decide what you want. Very simple, very, very simple, and so far too often not done. Okay, here's the exercise. I might put on some thinking music if I can do it. Oh no, then I have to stop sharing my screen. So we're going to do it without music. Maybe. We'll see. I'm going to set a timer. We're going to spend 2 minutes on a piece of paper in front of you. Free flow. Some of you are focused on this. You've already done this exercise, or you're just keyed right in on it. Some of you have done it long ago. Some of you have done it recently. It doesn't matter. We're doing it right here, right now. 2 minutes, dreams, hopes, and desires. What do you want to have? What do you want to do? Who do you want to be? All the people that matter to you. You know, we've heard this expression, I would die for that person. I would challenge you, would you live for them? And what does that look like? Be, do, have, do, be. 2 minutes. Please spend some time and write your thoughts. I want to encourage you to be as specific as you can be, so you can go big picture, and then feel free and I encourage you to dig down and make that specific. You're getting an extra 45 seconds here. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2. What's my timer? Okay, so that's not enough time. That's something that, if you haven't done that exercise before, or if that was triggering some new thoughts and, firing you up, spend some more time on that. Spend some more time on that tonight, right? Spend some more time on that tomorrow. Set aside time. Get together with your spouse or your loved one. Have your kids go through that exercise. And really, another version of that is in the Power of Focus book, when he talks about the 101 exercise. Rial Michaud, if you guys have heard him speak, he talks a lot about the process, or any of the Michauds actually, as being a turning point in their business when they went through, we call it the 101 exercise from the Power of Focus, which is, if time and money were no object, what are the 101 things that you would be, do, and have? And you had to come up with a full 101, and fleshing out you would truly like your life to look like. What kind of vehicle would you drive? What kind of charity could you be involved in? How would other people feel about you? And again, not because we're so much attached, but that vision of how you want to show up in life should also be part of this. All those kinds of things. This exercise is worthy of your best time and attention to develop, and it can be a lot of fun. All right, from that, now this is something we won't spend a ton of time on here tonight. We're going to talk about it for a little bit. Feel free to take a screenshot or jot this down. But the next step would be, and I got to move some things so I can see it. The next step would be taking those kind of point form things and now fleshing that out into an actual descriptive vision of your life. What does this look like long term? May I go back to this? Do you know, 5 years from now, I'm going to be here. That's 5 years from now. I'm 51 years old. I was looking at it. I have a mortgage on one of my properties that's up for renewal. And by the way, that's fun. If you don't need a reason to go make more money, renew a mortgage in this environment. I don't know if anyone's on this call that was in that meeting with me. We had a little team meeting with part of my team last night, and my big joke was, basically, who here wants to be my mortgage? Because it's going up a whole bunch. I had a great rate. It's going up a whole bunch. Hey, one of the, again, sobering experiences of looking at that was I've got 10 years left on that mortgage as it stands. That's not how long we're going to go. We're going to get that thing paid off. But I was thinking about that. In 10 years, I'll be 56 years old. If I didn't have a way to get that mortgage paid off sooner, I'd be paying that mortgage until I was 56. And by the time I was done, I would be 50. Like these are some sobering thoughts. That's not my aspirational vision for the future. And I don't mean to tell you what yours should be, but I hope it includes a whole ton of financial freedom. So what is your vision for 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now? When you write that down on the piece of paper, I'm going to challenge you to write your age. Write how old you are now, add 5 years and write that age, add 10 years and write that age, add 15 years and write that age. For some of us, when we look into the future and we look at these things, it can actually be a little bit painful, because we can sometimes summon up some regrets. What should I have been doing 5 years ago and 10 years ago and 15 years ago, right? We sometimes take this, instead of going into the future, and we end up kind of beating ourselves up a little bit in the past. I would encourage you, any sensations that you might have around that, is don't sit in them for long. It's good to recognize what we don't want more of. That's not a bad thing. But as soon as that turns into something that blocks our creativity and blocks that passion and blocks our ability to be aspirational, then that's stealing from us the next 5 years and the next 10 years. So we have to very, very quickly let go of the stuff that we cannot change and we cannot control, and determine that we're going to pay attention to and focus on what we can. Just, you are young at heart, Lara. All right. So let's get a little bit more granular. So that's the long-term vision, and now a 36-month vision. And you're going to do the same thing. How old will you be? And by the way, you don't have to do this by year, literally 36 months from now, which is good because I'm not 46 yet. So 36 months from now, I'll only be 48 and not 49. So that makes me feel pretty good. But I hope I'll still be happy and healthy and part of this great team. So that's also makes me feel good. So what is your vision? 3 years from now, what do you want to create in your personal life and in your business? And again, you can use these triggers, spouse, family, health, spiritual, to connect back to that be, do, have exercise and bring those forward into what is actually possible. What's possible for 2027? God willing, we're all still alive. 2027 is happening. And where do you want to be? What is that going to look like? Do you want it to look the same as it does now? How do you want to feel? How do you want to look in the mirror? How do you want to look at your 250K ring? That's a phenomenal goal, Jerry. You absolutely can make that happen. Oh, Jess is bragging. It's going to be 40. It's wild, man. It's wild. The passage of time. Instructing you to, oh, hey, here's something I'd like you to think about. And nope. You are deciding. We are all deciding, all 108. And there's actually way more because I can see now, by the way, what does NWO stand for? The NW Northwest Ontario? Is that right? What prize do I get? Who wants to pay my mortgage? You guys could take a pool, 20. Hey, you know what? $100 each? Just kidding. Northwest Ontario office. There's way more than one of you there. So however many of us are on the call, I'm going to throw out, let's say there's 125 of us with some of the groups. 125 of us right here, right now, tonight are deciding that what we do in the next 3 months and what we decide to do is non-negotiable as a component, as a chunk of time that's going to set us forward on that path to achieving that vision that you want. For Jerry to get his 250K ring. For Trish, I can send this to you. If anyone wants a copy of this, in fact, I'll put in the chat right now. Don't put your email in the chat because I am not copying it down. I will only reply to people who take enough. I am only replying to people who take enough effort to email me first, and then I will reply and send you this little presentation, which is pretty simple, but if you'd like a copy of it, you're more than welcome. Okay. I forgot where I was at, but yeah, we are deciding all together right now, right here, that the next 3 months matter because they do. That's 12 weeks of your life. Whoops. Back here. Did I go? All right. It's a good thing my skills at PowerPoints don't matter. They do, but not as much as what we do with the next 12 weeks. All right. Building your 12-week plan. All right. The purpose of the plan is to define what it will take to get you there. If your vision is the what, then your 12-week plan is the how. So now, again, we are doing this on a totally protracted, conceptual basis. You guys, you can get that book. There's online courses you can take. He even has, if you search it, if you Google it, you can Google 12-week plan starter, and you will be able to follow through on some of the steps where you'll need a little bit more time than we have tonight. But what we're doing tonight is going to help anyway. If you're going to follow through on that, this will be the great start. If you're going to just work on more of what we're doing tonight, this is going to be a great start. So it's all positive. Remember that planning can be great fun. In fact, one of the greatest antidotes to discouragement and to, whatever's just happened, reacting to being emotionally unregulated, one of the greatest antidotes to all of that is spending time in the mental vision of your future and the possibilities. I think Angela Bradford, I'm going to butcher it, but she had a great quote I wrote down once about, the people who are in their vision and in the possibilities and have hope don't quit. Right? So the emotions that would lead us down those paths can't exist at the same time that we're excited about our future. So planning can be great fun. The process of thinking through and setting out what it will take to reach your goals creates positive emotions and energy. It also makes your vision seem more attainable. And here's the key. You begin to shift from what's only possible to what now becomes probable. We have our vision. We have our tactics, which is just simply how we're going to execute it. And then we slot that into a schedule. And if we actually do that schedule, then now, and based on a business like ours, which can be engineered based on numbers, running the numbers, now it's actually probable. These things can happen for you. And if you've thought about this before, if you've been around long enough where you're like, yeah, I know, don't buy into your regrets over what you didn't do or what went wrong or what lesson that you learned the hard way or whatever. Don't let your thoughts around that sell you the reality that it can't be different going forward, because I'm here to tell you that's a lie. And we don't believe lies around here. It's possible and it's probable if you have not only the why, but then you actually craft out the how that you're going to execute. So here's how this works. So the 12-week goals, that's the next 3 months. We're going to call that summer. This is what you're doing there is jotting down, right? We had the talked about the vision for the long term, the vision for the next 3 years. And now we want to look specifically at what outcomes can we target for the next 12 weeks. And if you're newer, get some help from your leadership around the amount of time you can put in the business and the activity level that will be necessary for the kind of outcomes you have. So it's something you can actually buy into. Now, it should be aspirational. It should stretch you potentially if that's what you want, if your goals are big, which I hope they are. But we want to make sure, we want to set you up for some success. We want to set you up for hitting those targets. All right. So again, it links to your vision. You may have multiple goals, but remember that less is more, in the sense that if you have more than 3 goals, then you might not have any at all. In other words, if there's more that you're targeting than you actually have the time and capacity to, then you might not be able to really target any of them, right? So the more focused your plan is, the more effective you'll be. Tactics. Just catching up on the chat, make sure I wasn't missing anything. Thank you for whoever reposted my email. Tactics. This is how you will accomplish each goal. For each goal, you will create tactics. That's actions that you will take in order to achieve your goal. All right. Here's the cheat code at WFG. Most people at any other kind of a business, or even if they had goals around like their fitness, they'd have to go get that information from somebody, right? Like or they'd have to figure it out themselves. At World Financial Group, this entire business model is about people who know how to do this stuff, teaching those of us who are trying to learn. In other words, here's the goal I have. How do I back engineer that to the activity, which is the tactics, right? What do I actually have to do? The actions that I have to take. And that's completely spelled out for us. We're going to go through an example. Is there anybody, and I'm going to move some stuff around so I can see some more faces. Is there anybody amongst us who would consider themselves a builder, or wants to be a builder, or is working on building? No, just Lena, okay, I see some more hands. Great. Perfect. I had a little pop-up that said some people raise their hands. Awesome. All right. So we want to build. And building ultimately comes down to what? Growing our team, just getting recruits. I mean, recruiting is part of it. What are we actually trying to do? If we're building, what are we actually trying to do? I'm going to go to the chat and I'm going to wait. We're changing lives, building. Oh, there we go. Building leaders, leaving a legacy, right? These are all, those are great descriptives. Let's be specific. You guys are all right. Everything you've said is right. If we're building a team, we're actually building an organization. Let's get really clear. What is the specific outcome? There we go, Jerry. Jerry, there you go. Boom. You guys were all right, by the way. Everyone was right. That's all in there. We're just breaking this down to, if we're actually going to build, we are growing our number of licensed agents. And somebody else mentioned leadership. We're going to develop them into leaders. The ones that are going to become leaders, we're going to develop those into leaders. And we're going to duplicate that process over and over again. So if that vision, if any of you wrote stuff down that it's going to require building a team, having an empire, building something that can produce multiple 6-figure incomes passively, if any of your vision it requires that, you've got a vehicle that can deliver that. And so if we're thinking about our next 12-week goals, and that's our part of our 3-year and our long term, what should be part of our outcome in the next 12 weeks? Is it fair to say that we should be building that pipeline to create more licensed agents? Are you guys with me? The exercise I'm going through, what has to go in our pipeline so that we have more licensed agents coming out the end? So here's one of the things here's a sample idea of how you might use this. In 12 weeks from now, how many more licensed agents do you want on your team? Or depending on your level of participation, if you're part-time, I don't want to impose upon you what it should look like. I hope I can stretch you a little, but 12 weeks from now, if you have no licenses, if you have 5 licenses, what would you like your number to be? And if for whatever timeline you're thinking, well, I don't know if I could actually get someone all the way through the license. By the way, you can, but if you're thinking that that's not what you're focused on, then how far along in the licensing process should they be? Are you guys with me? So connect that very specifically very specifically with what you're trying to accomplish. And then your tactic would be, all right, if I wanted to add 2 more licensed people on my team, what specific tactics do I have to do? What actions do I have to do between now and then? And you could back engineer that right to how many invites per expansion presentation you and your team would have to have. And if you have clarity around that, then what do you have to put in your schedule? The activities to make that happen. Whatever it takes for however long it takes, you're going to decide, act, and adjust as needed to make sure that you're getting a result. And in and amongst that, you're also going to put things like an afternoon with my kids at the park, or this weekend we're going to go camping, or whatever other things that you want to put in. I want to make sure I'm being clear that if you can schedule it in, you can do both. And if we have the discipline to execute our schedule, you will get the results. You can have both. All right, how the plan is structured and written has a huge impact on your execution. Vague or poorly written goals and tactics will hinder effective execution. Likewise, a well-constructed goal is clear and precise, thereby making implementation easier. Okay, a little bit more exercise, a little bit more time together here, or time spent on your, just, sorry, 1 second. I've just got to close the door. 1 moment. Sorry about that. I gave you some time, hopefully, to read what's on the screen. The cleaners are just coming through, and somebody left the office door open, so it's starting to get a little bit loud out there. All right, there are 5 criteria to adhere to when writing a plan. You guys have heard some of this before, but we're gonna talk about it. Specific and measurable, quantify and qualify. The more specific, the better. We're gonna state it positively. Focus on what you want to happen that is positive. As an example, rather than saying, I'm going to quit smoking, you would become a non-smoker. So we want to put it in something, again, that when we're rereading it, when we're revisiting it, when we're focusing on it, it's lifting us up rather than making us feel like we might be beating ourselves down or thinking on the negative. Some chocolate's okay, unless there's a reason you can't have any, but I hope it's okay. Realistic stretch. So this is coming back to the concept of setting yourself up for success. If you can accomplish the strategy without doing anything different, then you probably need to stretch more. If it's absolutely impossible, and I want to be careful because I think we should be a little bit unreasonable from time to time. We should be possibility thinkers. But if I have only 1 or 2 licenses on my team, it may be impossible. Now, somebody could prove me wrong, but it may be impossible to get to 50 by mid-September. But could I get to 50 in the next 12 to 18 months? Is that common? That would be highly uncommon behavior. But is it possible? I think that could be possible if we actually ran through and did the numbers. And again, if some of this, the metrics of it are not familiar to you, get with a trainer, get with a colleague, get with someone who you can actually spell that out with. Because we can back engineer all results in our business on average to the specific filling the front of our pipeline activity of prospecting and invites and presentations, because we can back engineer everything that comes out of the pipeline back to those initial activities, we really can do some practical math, and we really can come up with a plan that might be a stretch activity wise, but could absolutely be possible. All right, accountability. I want to spend a little bit of time on this. Individual accountability is critical. So this is kind of looking at it from the standpoint of, everyone's challenges, no one's challenge, meaning that, now it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have team challenges, but we need to be looking at this from our own individual activity and what our commitments are and how we measured up. This is not meant to be an exercise in beating ourselves up. So often we think of accountability as, the kind of discipline that's not like what we were talking about, where we are disciplining ourselves to do what we what we really want to do as opposed to what we want right now, right? So we can overcome those feelings that work against us. It's the other kind of discipline. It's the kind of discipline that makes us feel bad. It's the kind of discipline that, we feel like we've been scolding or we're scolding ourselves. Accountability is not supposed to be that. Yes, there is an element of, we'll call it pressure. There is an element of, holding that standard, but that's the point. It's meant to be about learning and lessons. And quite frankly, I'm searching again for the right word, but here's what it is. It's meant to be the opposite of delusion. It's meant to be, here's the example I want to give. Accountability is like opening up your phone and checking where you are on a map. I'm going to tell you a little quick story. Now, if I open up my phone, unless I'm just mean to myself and beating myself up, if I don't know my way around somewhere and I'm lost, and I'm going to use the GPS that's on my phone. I open it up and I see where I'm at on the map, and I'm not in the right place. I got to go 2 streets over. I got to reroute. I got to do whatever. Should I use that to hurt my feelings, or should I just use that as feedback? That's just meant to be feedback. It's just meant to show me where I am in comparison to where I want to be, and then what changes I need to make so I can get back on track. Here's my story. Absolutely, Brittany. It's a guide. I was in Thailand. I can't remember. Was it 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago? And I was there with my boyfriend. I went out on a scooter with this cell phone, which was connected to the network. I went on a scooter. The sun was shining. It was a beautiful day. I was by myself. I'm in this incredible country on this very dangerous road with all the other scooters and taxis and buses, which, by the way, the rule of the road is don't get hit and don't hit someone else. That's the rules of the road. You're just like little ants going around everywhere.